The story from today was shared on Bender Flipside. Sarah talked about what it was like to die during surgery. She was in a dark space at this point, but she could see a faint point of light coming closer. She was drawn to it and went inside, where she met Jesus. He told her about the place in heaven that God has planned for her to live in the future. When I was 14, I was in an accident that hurt my leg badly. I was taken to the hospital by ambulance right away. At the moment of contact, I had the strangest feeling that my whole life was flashing before my eyes backward, like a movie that was playing very quickly. That thought screen showed every part of my life. When I thought about the people I loved, I felt bad about any mean things I had done. It felt like time was moving very slowly, and I was afraid of dying. I wondered how I could leave this life without having any happy memories. I mourned the thought of living such a sad life with no happy memories to hold on to. I won't go into more detail about the abuse I faced as a child, but it ruined my life, and I felt very angry that I didn't have any good memories. When I got to the hospital, I had to wait in the emergency room for 4 hours while I was bleeding a lot. By the time my dad quickly called for a nurse, I was covered in blood and my elbow was showing, so I had to have surgery right away. After getting x-rays, I was ready for surgery, where I was given sleep. I was afraid that I would wake up during the process because I remembered that my grandfather woke up while he was still being operated on, which is a memory that I will always have. I breathed in as much gas as I could so I could fall asleep and not wake up during the surgery. I never lost consciousness, but I started to feel very scared. Even though I was screaming and moving around, I stayed still and quiet and kept saying, "I am still awake." Then all of a sudden, I was on the ceiling, feeling completely calm and peaceful. I was amazed at how detailed and close the ceiling looked. I also felt weightless as I bounced gently between the ceiling and the floor. I could hear and feel a sharp, high-pitched noise that made me feel uncomfortable and want to run away. As soon as I said I felt uneasy, I was thrown into a vast area of darkness that was darker than anything I could have imagined. It made me afraid of the dark because I thought something would come out and hurt me. When I tried to feel my body, I realized I didn't have any. I didn't know why I had no body sensations because I was confused and thought I was dreaming. In this state, I was curious about how I looked, and when I tried to touch myself with what I thought were hands, I went right through myself. I missed the light and asked myself where my dad was. It was scary how dark it was, and I wished there was a light switch or some other way to make things brighter. Without being able to see, moving around seemed useless, and I was eager to get out of the darkness because I was afraid of possible dangers. Even though it was very dark, I never felt or saw any real danger during the whole thing. As soon as I felt uncomfortable and worried about my dad and the lack of light, I saw a tiny bit of light in the distance. The light rushed toward me in an instant. As a child, I was beaten and hit a lot, so I was afraid the light would hit me. I moved out of the way automatically because I was afraid of getting hurt. When I turned around, I saw a beautiful light that was full of colors: gold, white, pink, and more, and each color sparkled like a jewel. The light looked like it was living and called to me. I tentatively put out my hand, and the feeling was so strong and full of love that it was hard to describe. When I put all of my attention on the light, I felt a deep link and an embrace that felt like a tight hug. I was afraid that this warmth would go away, so I never wanted to leave it. Because I stayed in the light, I let down my guard for the first time. I loved the experience so much that I danced and spun happily, finally feeling happy. I looked at myself from every angle because I was interested in how I looked. The top of my body looked the same as it always had. Anyway, I told myself, oh well, I look the same. I saw two bright lights in the distance that looked like people. I kept blinking to make sure they were real because I was wondering if the medicine was making it hard for me to see. The best way I could describe them was as vague beings of white light. As they got closer, I told them, I couldn't see you very well, and I asked where my dad was. They talked to each other through telepathy and said, at the end of the light. I asked for their help because I was feeling unsure after my recent accident. After they agreed, we slowly made our way to the end of the line. Moving slowly because I didn't know what was beyond, I asked what was waiting for me. They told me I had to go in to find out. I was afraid that if I went ahead with my plan, the love and happiness I was feeling would go away. I went through what felt like a doorway because I trusted the two light beings. Even though it hurt my eyes, the light was so bright that I couldn't see past it. The moment I crossed the barrier, I saw the experience from a different angle, along with a full 360-degree view of everything around me. I saw myself from 3 different points of view. I saw myself rising into a huge area of clouds. As I went up, I came to a place I can only describe as a world of lights. Everything shined brightly like diamonds, and everything gave off a beautiful glow. The flowers, plants, and trees were spotless, with no dead leaves or sticks on them. Everything around was immaculately clean and lovely. I walked along what looked like a road or street, taking in the beauty of the scene. When I finally got to a fork in the road, I saw a building to my left. It was made of a clear material that looked like crystals and went into the ground and rose at an interesting angle. I was amazed at how cool and amazing it looked. The building had 12 clear crystal walls or supports, and names were written in different colors on each one. I was able to read the English names, but I can't remember them now. As I looked at it for what seemed like a long time, I told myself to remember this moment. Ahead of me, I saw 2 women coming up behind me, and I was nervous about talking to anyone. Because I didn't know where I was or what I could do, I tried to hide behind a tree so no one would see me. As the 2 women got closer, I squished up against the tree and began to blend in with it. Oh, whoa! I always thought I could do this, I yelled when I realized what I had found. I watched as the women walked by, not seeming to notice that I was there. As I stayed in the tree for what seemed like forever, I enjoyed the experience. The tree's colors reminded me of the colors I was made of, making a perfect link. The voice of a man asked, "Are you going to stay in the tree the whole time?" in a playful way. "Oh no, I didn't think I could go anywhere else," I said with a laugh. "This is your home, and you can go wherever you want," the voice said. When I asked, "Really?" they answered with a loud, "Yes." As I walked along the road or street, I felt excited and did gymnastics without any trouble. Since I was a kid, I loved gymnastics, and here I did the moves perfectly, which was something I had never done before. With my eyes closed, I felt like I was off to follow someone. I finally got into what looked like an office or room, and the view was stunning. Earth showed up, all of her stunning beauty, with deep blue seas that were truly amazing. The floor-to-ceiling window or wall in the room looked like the crystal-like material in the last building, and it might even have been the same one. I wasn't paying much attention to the room because I was too busy dancing and doing gymnastics. It was just as dark in space around Earth as it is now. The only time I saw darkness, there was that one time I looked out at Earth through the clear wall and thought about all the hard things I had to go through in my life. I kept going over the terrible memories of being abused and asking myself why God hadn't protected me. I thought that maybe He would help me, like the people in the Bible, and wondered if my love for Him wasn't enough. I asked Him over and over why He hadn't defended me. I felt like no one loved or respected me in this world. As I thought about these things again, I started to get answers. When I asked myself questions, I heard a calm, male voice with perfect pitch and a musical quality. The answer to my question, "Why won't God protect me?" was reassuring. He will. It was clear that I didn't believe it. As I kept saying, "He will?" the voice replied, "Yes." As I read each answer, the fear seemed to lift from my mind, like the phrase, "the weight of the world on your shoulders." Then I asked, "Why doesn't God defend me?" The voice told me that the problems I was having were only temporary. I told them how angry I was that people were accusing me of things I hadn't done because I thought no one would believe me. I felt better when I heard the person say, "I believe you." Then I asked, "You do?" It's hard to describe how good it felt to be believed. I kept looking at Earth and was amazed by how big it was and how bright its colors were. As I thought about my feelings, I said I wanted to be beautiful and heard the answer, "You are." I asked, "I am?" in shock. The voice replied, "Yes." I said that I looked the same when I saw myself in the light. It was made clear, that's not you. I felt so happy when I realized that my true beauty went beyond what I first saw. With each confirmation, I felt even better. So I kept talking about what I wanted. When I said I wished I could sing well, they told me, "You do." "Really?" I asked in shock. The voice replied, "Yes." Then I wished I was perfect, and the voice told me, "You are." "I am?" I asked again and again, and was told, "Yes, you are." When I thought about my past, I thought I must have done something wrong to deserve the abuse I got. I thought it was because I was a bad kid. I said I didn't think I was perfect because I always got beaten. I always aimed to be good so that no one would be mad at me. I thought I was failing a lot, and I didn't want God to be mad at me. Nothing you could ever do could change the way God feels about you, the voice told me. The next line said, "God loves you." "He does?" I asked in shock, and was told, "Yes, He does." After that, I said I wanted to be unique, like the people in the Bible. The voice said, "You are." I asked again, "Really, I am?" and got a confirmation that said, "Yes, you are." I wished that God loved me as much as He loved the people in the Bible. "He does," came the voice back. "He does?" I asked again, and was reassured with a loud, "Yes, He does." I couldn't put into words how deeply I felt. I could share this feeling with everyone because it made me feel like I was full of love and happiness. I said, "I just want to be with God. I just want to be with you." "You will," the voice answered. At the same time, I turned around and asked, "I will?" The man I met was the most beautiful I had ever seen. His look was one of pure love and excitement, like I had never seen him look before. His eyes were the bluest I had ever seen, and they were filled with love and happiness. He was very young, very tall, very dark, and unbelievably good-looking. It seemed like no one else in the world could be as beautiful as Jesus Christ. Without a flaw, he ran to me, and I ran to him. He gave me a tight hug, and I melted into his arms. I felt right at home with him. For what seemed like forever, we were both lost in each other's eyes. He finally told me, "You mean I don't have to sleep forever?" He gave a soft laugh and said, "No." He told me that I was going to live forever and would never die. It was he who told me this was my real home and that I would spend all my time with him and other people here. This revelation made me feel like I could not put it into words. From what the Jehovah's Witnesses told me, I would not go to heaven or be with God or Jesus. Instead, I would sleep forever. They thought that when your body dies, your soul dies with it, and you stay dead until Jesus wakes you up. That's what they teach. He then asked me if I wanted to stay there or go back to Earth. I told him I had no idea what I was supposed to do with my life. He said, "Love and have fun." I was shocked and asked, "Is that it?" "I love everyone," I said. He replied, "I know you do," and his smile was warm and kind, like it showed pride. I told myself, "Well, I guess no one likes me there." Jesus told me, "Yes, they do." "They do?" I asked with some doubt, because I didn't see any signs of love from them. After that, I said, "But no one loves me." He told them, "I love you." "You do?" I asked again. He squeezed my hands together in front of his chest and said, "Yes, I do." We kept looking into each other's eyes, and our hearts were full of love. I thought I could look at him for a long time and never want to take my eyes off of him. I said, "What awaits me on earth if I go back?" He told me that he had little gifts for me, hidden all through my life, like all the animals he had carefully bred for me. He told me that these animals would love me a lot. "Animals can love?" I asked in awe. "Yes, of course they can," he answered. Then Jesus showed me a picture of my life after I died if I came back. It happened on the clear wall that looked out over Earth. I saw myself smiling and being happy, which was very different from how unhappy I was on Earth because of abuse and thinking I would never get to heaven. It had been a long time since I had any happy memories to hold on to. When I looked at this future self, I wanted to be that happy. I could see myself getting married and being happy just to be living. I also saw the people I would help find God, and I really wanted everyone to feel the love I was feeling. I loved the love so much. It was everything I wanted and still want. I felt a deep sense of meaning and fulfillment as I thought about how many lives I would touch and bring to God. Even though I knew I wanted to go back, I was afraid of going back to my hard life. I was being abused at home, and I was hurting every day. When I took my eyes off Jesus, I looked out at the world and wished he could come with me. It scared me to think about asking him because I was afraid he would say no. The thought of him saying no made me feel worthless, and I didn't believe that someone as beautiful as him would want to be with someone like me. I stated, "If I go back, I don't want to stay long." Jesus' answer was a simple, "Okay." I got ready to ask him to please come with me, but I didn't think he would. I loved him so much that I couldn't stand the thought of him leaving me. He had the same steadfast smile on his face when I turned around to look at him again. That whole time, from the first time I saw him until I could no longer, he never took his eyes off of me. His eyes never left mine. They were full of love and comfort, and they made me feel loved and important. If Jesus came back with me, I thought no one would hurt me, and I could finally show my stepmother that I wasn't guilty of everything she said I did. Jesus' faith in me made me think he could protect me. He was also the most beautiful man I had ever seen and would ever see again. It took a lot of bravery for me to ask him to come with me. His answer, "Sure, I'll go," came right away. I ran to him, and he came to me too. "You will?" I asked. He smiled at me again and again, his eyes wide and filled with that beautiful deep blue. He held me close, and I put my hands on his chest. I couldn't put into words how happy I was. We both felt so full of love that we lost ourselves in each other's eyes again. I felt so happy, excited, and deeply in love that I couldn't contain it. This feeling stays with me every time I think about it. After that, a man came in through a door behind us. Besides being very handsome, he had the same caring look on his face as Jesus. He was happy to see me and gave Jesus a scroll. On a small platform next to him, Jesus signed something. I looked over at the man standing behind Jesus. He was still smiling at me, and then walked out the same door he came in through. Jesus asked me to go on a trip with him because he was excited to show me some amazing things. We walked along together for what seemed like a long time. Everything in the scene was perfectly placed and in full bloom, making it an enchantingly beautiful scene that words can't describe. We were walking along a road when we came to what looked like a part of a house. There was a calm body of water next to it. Jesus told me that this was a pond for reflection. I moved forward to get a better look because I was interested. When I turned around, Jesus was watching me with loving, wide eyes and a constant, bright smile. He pulled up and said, "This is your house?" I was thrilled and asked, "Really? This is my house." The perfect beauty of the place made me happy even before I had looked around it all. As we walked into the house, my mind went to the reflection pond. As I thought about whether to go back or stay, I was charmed by the place. Jesus kept looking at me with a loving look on his face and a warm smile that wouldn't go away. As we sat by the pond and looked at each other lovingly, I was amazed at how wonderful it was to have such a perfect house. He had one more amazing thing to tell me before we went back to Earth. We walked together for a while, but I was so interested in him that I forgot where we were going. I could feel how excited he was, and I couldn't wait to find out what he had planned. He had just given me a house, which was more than anyone else had ever done for me, except my grandmother. When Jesus opened a door, he saw a huge group of people that I couldn't even begin to count. The smiles they gave me were just as warm and bright as Jesus's. And the man with the scrolls, he said, "All of these people love you." "They do," was my shocked answer. Each person sparkled with beautiful colors and gave off an air of happiness and love. They used telepathy to tell me how much they loved and were proud of me. I had a strong desire to stay and connect with all of them, loving each person, even the ones I hadn't met before. I said, "I wish I hadn't spent so much time in the tree. I might have had more time to visit with them." People in the crowd laughed along with Jesus when I said something about the tree. I will always remember that wonderful moment. We had to say goodbye and come back to Earth at some point. After leaving the group of loving faces, Jesus and I felt full in our hearts. Before we left for our trip back to Earth, Jesus told us he had to do something that might seem a little strange. I agreed because I was interested in what would happen. After that, I had a deep experience where I felt like Jesus had become one with me. I could see and feel things from his point of view, as if I could use both of my senses at the same time. Now that we knew this, we left our home in space and started our journey back to Earth. Even though the trip was short, I felt like we had covered a lot of ground. Then there was a bright flash of light behind us, and we were back in the emptiness of space. At that time, I felt like I had no limits on how far I could reach. It was like I could see the whole universe and where the planets were in relation to each other. There were no clear limits to my understanding. I flew above Earth because I wanted to enjoy one last view before going back to the real world and my physical body. I had the sensation of being held in someone's arms. I felt like I was being hugged. As soon as I reached out for the light, I realized I wasn't breathing while sitting with my hands folded in my lap. I was still living, though. Jesus made me feel better by telling me, the body needs to breathe, not you. Then I felt a soft breeze come through me. It was so nice that I wanted to remember it forever. As someone who lives in Florida, where the heat is often unbearable and makes my skin condition worse, this perfect breeze was a welcome release. As I looked at Earth's water, I longed to be closer to it. In an instant, we were flying at incredible speeds. It felt like we were on the wildest roller coaster ride ever, but we didn't have to worry about heights or falling. It was a trip I will never forget. As we sped toward the water, the surface split in two, making a small Red Sea. I was protected by a sphere that kept me dry, but I felt a pang of sadness because I liked the feel of water on my skin. Jesus told me not to worry. Your body gets wet, not you. Even though there was a small disappointment, I enjoyed skimming across the water and laughing as we sped back to the hospital. Before going back to my earthy body, which felt heavy, dirty, hot, and sweaty, I took one last look around. It made me feel disgusted, and I didn't care about it. Where do I go in? I asked. I quickly and easily went back into my body. I got back into my body through the lower part of my sternum. Being back in such a thick, hollow shell felt strange, because I wasn't sure where I was. I moved around inside, bouncing from my legs to my arms and back again. As I heard people trying to wake me up, it was hard for me to get back in touch with my body. I felt better when Jesus told me, it will only take a second to reconnect with your body. I chose to keep my thoughts separate until I could react properly. Does anyone have a breath mint? I finally asked. I was shocked to be told I could not have anything, not even water. Only ice chips were okay. I felt bad about my breath because I could remember every mint, gum, and mouthwash I had ever used. As much as I asked, the staff seemed annoyed, but I was determined not to have bad breath while I answered their questions. In the end, I was taken to my hospital room, where my dad was waiting. It was possible that Jesus would come in through the door, but I couldn't find him anywhere. Even though I want to see him again, I haven't had the chance yet. I will wait calmly for the day we meet again. The event had a huge impact on my life. I had to fight for almost a year to get my walking back. The unending love Jesus showed me has changed me forever.